Support.
The maestro, please.
Here we are, end of November before we go into the Christmas holiday season, which means it's time for a pop analysis. This month we'll be looking at Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
This is the fourth time we're talking about Taylor Swift, given the first time we talked about it, she was with Zayn.
I'm sitting eyes wide open and I got one thing stuck in my mind.
Then we had her solo.
You need to calm down. You're being too loud.
Then we did that monstrous 10-minute long song from when she redid one of her old tracks.
All too well.
Since then, she has continued to re-record some of her old songs.
This love is good, this love is bad, this love is a light back from.
As well as some new material as well, even in the movies.
Oh, Carolina creeks running through.
Background.
Anti-Hero was released on October 21st of 2022 and charted shortly after at the beginning of November at number 1, where it still sits at number 1 as of the beginning of December. Because it's Taylor Swift and it has an insurmountable amount of popularity, there are a bunch of different versions of this, so many that they actually have a whole collection of remixes simply called Anti-Hero Remixes. Remixes include one featuring Bleachers, which is Jack Antonoff's group, which makes sense because he produced the song. One by Roosevelt. One by Kongs.
Always rooting for the anti-hero.
And one by Jada G.
Always rooting for the anti-hero. It's me.
In addition, there are even more versions that weren't included on said collection of remixes, including an Millennium remix.
Always rooting for the anti-hero.
As well as an acoustic version.
Always rooting for the anti-hero.
Anti-Hero is the first single off of Taylor Swift's newest album, Midnights, which was also released on October 21st. Just recently, in fact yesterday, a second single was released from Midnights, that being...
I feel the lavender haze creeping up on me.
I actually alluded to the other person who actually worked on this album with Taylor Swift, the only other person being Jack Antonoff. Jack Antonoff helped out with some of the previous Taylor Swift songs we talked about, I Don't Want to Live Forever and All Too Well, and ever since then he also hasn't been up too much in terms of pop hits, given he did the entire soundtrack to that Minions: The Rise of Gru movie. Anti-Hero is released solely by Republic.
Form.
Anti-Hero is listed as a pop rock and synth pop song, is just over 3 minutes 20 seconds, is an E major, and is 97 beats per minute. After the short drum intro, we get the first verse.
I have this thing where I get older, but just never.
Followed by the first pre-chorus.
I should not be left to my own devices. They come with.
And then the first chorus.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem.
That pattern then repeats with the second verse.
Sometimes I feel like everybody is a sexy.
Second pre-chorus.
I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as.
And second chorus.
At tea time, everybody agree.
We then get a bridge.
I have this dream, my daughter-in-law kills me for the
Followed by a breakdown.
It's me. I am the problem. It's me.
Before finally going into the third chorus.
I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the.
And ultimately the ending of the song.
Always rooting for the anti-hero.
Pad.
The pad is that rhythmic harmonic figure we hear in the very beginning of the song, first starting off on that low A and B, before going to that B and E, then going up to the E and G sharp, making that an E and G, before finally ending on once more a B and E.
Bass.
The bass part's actually quite simplistic, simply going back and forth between G sharp, C sharp, G sharp, A, and then repeating that same figure.
lead.
The lead plays during the chorus and is actually quite difficult to hear. Regardless, starting off on B, it drops down to E, creeps up to A, and drops all the way down to D in a very syncopated rhythm before going back up to B, but for the rest of the figure, really just stays on those E's and D's and F sharps.
Synth.
Very much just a transitionary figure as it's only 2 bars and it plays at the end of the chorus, going downwards in eighth notes A, G sharp, F sharp, holding that E on the offbeat before going down to D, back up to E, jumping up to the G sharp, dropping down to the F sharp, and then holding the E for the rest of the bar.
Guitar.
The guitar is actually quite hard to hear in most of the song, and you really only hear it during the breakdown. Even then, its strumming pattern is quite inconsistent and actually hard to figure out, which is why I've included the bass figure underneath. It's the same bass figure we talked about before, now just being played by an electric bass as opposed to that synth bass. Regardless, we now finally get to hear the proper harmonic chord progression, going A sus2 to E major, to B major, to C sharp minor 7, which it just repeats.
Verse.
Taylor Swift actually starts off the song relatively high, going from that G sharp, working her way up to B, before going all the way down to those Ds and C sharps. She then repeats that phrase, but starts holding the F sharp as opposed to going all the way down to C sharp.
I have this thing where I get older, but just never wiser. Midnights become my afternoons.
The following phrase essentially repeats that with some minor rhythmic changes for changed words.
When my depression works the graveyard shift, all of the people I've ghosted stand there in the room.
The second verse also essentially just repeats that exact melodic contour and the exact syncopated rhythms.
Sometimes I feel like everybody is a sexy baby, and I'm a monster on the hill.
Second phrase of the second verse.
Too big to hang out, slowly lurching toward your favorite city. Pierced through the heart, but never killed.
Pre-chorus.
The pre-chorus is pretty simple rhythmically, but look how low we are in Taylor Swift's range, essentially bottoming out. The range of this entire phrase is the B below the staff, working all the way down to the C sharp, an octave below middle C.
I should not be left to my own devices. They come with prices and vices. I end up in crisis.
It's quite impressive how low she actually gets, and this goes for the backup vocals too, not even getting above that middle C sharp.
I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving, 'cause you got tired of my scheming. For the last time.
The second pre-chorus essentially repeats that too. We don't get as low, now bottoming out at that low E, but still.
Did you hear my covert narcissism? Like disguises altruism, like some kind of consciousness. All this time.
Given in the final phrase of the second pre-chorus, we do have that exact line now in octaves, so it's a bit easier to hear.
I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving, and life will lose all its meaning. For the last time.
Chorus.
Finally getting to the chorus, we have these very spaced out G sharps before she follows up with these syncopated rhythms on F sharp and E, which she then repeats.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees.
In the second part of the phrase, we stay very syncopated, starting off on that G sharp, working all the way down to that low E at the end of Antihero.
I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero.
The chorus doesn't change much, but we do get some additional ad-libs like this one in the second chorus that says the I'm the problem line a third higher before ending on that same E.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees.
And just like in the pre-chorus, on the last bar of the second phrase of the second chorus, we get that low line repeated an octave higher, again making it easier to hear.
I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero.
The only other other change that happens in the chorus after that is in the final chorus when we just have more ad-libs.
It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me, I'm the problem, it's tea time, everybody agrees,
Bridge.
The bridge essentially starts off the exact same way as the chorus. This goes for the rhythm and the melody.
I have this dream, my daughter-in-law kills me for the money. She thinks I left them in the will.
Given the second phrase of the bridge does change things rhythmically speaking on that second bar, before we're much more focused on eighth notes in the last half of that phrase to really emphasize the line.
The family gathers around and reads it, and then someone screams out, she's laughing up at us from hell.
Breakdown.
The breakdown essentially repeats the line from the chorus, although we're much lower and a little more off rhythm on that second high. Notice how in that third bar, we're on that D sharp and C sharp as opposed to F sharp and E. And notice how she repeats that going lower and lower, ending on that low B.
It's me, I am the problem, it's me, I am the problem, it's me.
We repeat this theme of doing the chorus even lower and lower and lower, even having these eighth note triplets that low in her range, and really holding that low E, given there's a pitch bend in it, and you can't really provide a note to when she holds the S in agrees.
It's me, hi, everybody agrees, everybody agrees.
Taylor Swift is coming at us with this song after two very distinct points in her career. One is her switch to more of a folk song, away from a pop sound, and the second is her recording a lot of her old music, which is very handedly in the country and pop genres. So now we get this interesting fusion of her early work and her late work, and it's culminating in this sort of synth pop, folk pop, indie rock, synth rock, whatever you want to call it. Regardless, it's Taylor Swift, and she's usually pretty successful at anything she does, especially considering her devoted fan base. So I can assure you, in terms of Taylor Swift songs and Taylor Swift pop analyses, this is far from the
Last time, it's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me, at tea time, everybody agrees.
Exactly 1 year since we looked at Taylor Swift's All Too Well. This makes the second year in a row that we've looked at a Taylor Swift song at the end of November. Reminder that November's frequently the last pop analysis we do of the year, so that's 2 years in a row we've ended with Taylor Swift. Let's see if she can make it a hat trick next year.
I'll stare directly at the sun, but